Hello, Daniel Ravan. How are you today, sir?
Hi, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you
That's
for asking.
that's my formal hello to you, but I know you, I think, well enough now to be like, "Hey, Danny, what's up, man?" So I am, as Danny knows, Megan Holmes, and I am coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, at my Needlepoint store, the Needlepoint Clubhouse. I am one half of the Pointing It Out podcast team, and today I have the great pleasure of, I guess, interviewing for maybe like almost the third time. Um, Danny Ravan, who is Danny, I'm gonna hack job this up if I try it, but I'm gonna give it a shot. CEO of Rainbow Gallery, CEO of Fleur de Paris, CEO of Kreinik, thread company, and CEO of Picture This Plus. Did I get all of your titles correct?
Yes.
It's a rough place to be at the top of four different businesses, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
So here's what I'm going to say. So I typically love when I start talking with someone to kind of dive into their background and what makes them tick and where'd you go to school and what was your degree in. But uh, Danny's done this before. And so if you are just joining us for one of the first times and you haven't seen this guy's face before, you should go back to an episode that we filmed on June 26th of 2021. Can you believe that? And Melissa, my partner in crime, Melissa MacLeod, who owns the Wool and the Floss and is the other half of the Pointing It Out podcast, she interviewed Danny for the first time, well, at least on our podcast then. Um, Following that, I had the great pleasure of actually going to the Fleur de Paris and Rainbow Gallery headquarters actually earlier this year, which Danny and I were talking about is kind of insane. It feels like it was 5 years ago, and it also feels like it was yesterday. But you'll find that tour on February 7th, 2024. And so if you're trying to navigate our podcast, we are for the most part on YouTube. We're now on audio platforms, and I'm not entirely sure if both of those have been translated to the audio version. And so if you're looking for those two episodes, if you will, you'll probably need to go to YouTube to find those. But Danny, a lot has changed actually between, well, 2021 for sure, but also just since February, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a year so far.
It's been a, what did you say?
Whirlwind.
A whirlwind. For a minute, I thought you said horrible. And uh, I don't think it's been a horrible year, but there have been a lot of personal changes in your life. So when I was there in February, I met your wonderful wife, Shauna, right?
Yes.
I also had the opportunity to meet your father, who really was the person who ushered you into this position and was your business partner for quite a while. Sadly, and my condolences, your father passed away in July of this year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And he had a battle with, was it kidney
Yeah, he had renal
disease?
failure.
Okay. Well, I want to press on, but I do want you to know that a lot of us were thinking about you. And I know that was a really hard loss to suffer. But in a turn of events that is not unlike the circle of life, you then welcomed a baby girl
Yes.
just 5 weeks ago. Is that right?
Yep.
And tell us all about the baby.
She's great. Honestly, it's been such a blessing and just pure joy. Um, with everything going on, we really just welcoming in a new life has been such a bright spot, and we're just in love with her.
Awesome.
Um,
And I asked you what her name was, and you told me Ruby. And I kind of giggled for just a second because I was thinking about all of those red sparkly threads that may have inspired her name. But I don't know if that's true or not.
but it's very fitting. It was not the plan. My wife and I just love the name, but now that I think about it, it's very fitting.
Well, congratulations on that front. And being the new father of a 5 week old, I asked you earlier. Now, also remember, I'm in the Midwest, so I'm Central Time, and Danny's on the Pacific Coast, and so he's 2 hours earlier. And I said, "Have you had enough coffee?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, that's probably also because you are the father of a newborn." So we're going to give you a little bit of grace, but we're also going to dive in here because there is a lot of cool things happening in your world. And as a huge needlepoint geek and a thread geek, I get really excited about all of the the bits and parts and the business aspects and elements, et cetera. So so I'm trying to figure out exactly where to start, but I think we can start at the fact that I named there are 4 companies under your purview. I think it's fair to say that 3 of the 4 are really rooted mostly in the needlepoint industry. Wouldn't you say that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Picture This Plus is a little more of a cross stitch product. It's mostly ground fabric. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But when your father started Fleur de Paris in 1979, you said to me that he really sort of had a vision of what could be. He had always really sort of been interested in the needlepoint industry and in threads, particularly. Is that right?
Yeah, he even had a thread, the Rainbow Gallery. He had velvet very early on.
Okay.
And Rainbow Gallery just did it better.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're giving a nod to the former owner of Rainbow Gallery, who was John, and I don't remember his last name.
Chatlis.
How do you spell C?
SCHATETELES, I believe.
So from what I understand of the story that I'm forming in my head here is that your father, Benjamin, and John both kind of started their companies around the same time in the early 80s and sort of ramped things up. And at a certain point, the friend that we all know in the industry, Sally London, who I just saw at market, by the way, she's looking good and she's doing fabulous. She introduced herself as the consultant, so I'm sure she feels really good about that role now. But we all know Sally is kind of the queen of Rainbow Gallery. Would that be fair to say?
That's 100%.
And so it sounds like she was able to connect your father and John when John sort of wanted to step away from the business. And your father took over Rainbow Gallery with the full intention of grabbing his young son, who had just graduated from college, to take over the business. Am I right about that part?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to tell the story in a Reader's Digest version so we can get to the guts of what I really want to talk about, which is the business today. So stop me whenever I'm saying the wrong thing. So now we've got Benjamin and Daniel at the helm here of Rainbow Gallery and Fleur de Paris. And Picture This Plus, when did that come in? I didn't ask that question.
2022.
Okay, so that was a rather new acquisition.
Yeah.
So we've got Fleur de Paris, Rainbow Gallery, Picture This Plus, and then along comes 2024, I guess this year, April, and the announcement comes out that the Ravan family has taken on Kreinik. Is that fair? So Doug Kreinik spent most of his life, and his mother, I think, is who started the Kreinik operation, if I recall. In fact, I didn't look this up, but if you are interested in the history of Kreinik, there is also an episode that Melissa filmed with Doug Kreinik to talk about the Kreinik dynasty, family, however you want to call that. But you know, as things go, people spend a career and a lifetime doing something, and it is at some point time for them to exit stage left. And so Doug was able to negotiate a deal, I guess. I'm ad-libbing that part with Daniel and his father. And so all of a sudden in April, you've got 4 businesses. Your father sadly is at the end of his life. You're starting as a young man with a young family. And we are in what I would call the height, the most current rush of needlepoint fashion. Everybody's needlepointing. And things have really ramped up a lot.
Yeah, it's great to see, honestly. It's just really amazing to see what shops have done, what stitchers have done, how brought people in. I'm really happy about it.
So what Dan and I were sort of talking about before this is that this interview will be interesting for us because I am Danny's customer and my customer is the end product user. And so what I want to try to do, and I'm hoping that Danny will go along this journey with me, is to sort of explain, I guess, some nuances to this industry. Supply chain issues, production issues. There's a whole lot that goes into you using SL O2 on your canvas in droves. And I find this stuff kind of, like I said, nerdy and cool. For us, it is a business. It, at the end of the day, is just needlepoint. And so if you're missing your SLO2, hold on tight, it's coming. But let's kind of talk about how things operate, I guess, at the Rainbow Gallery, Fleur de Paris. Picture this Kreinik headquarters. So it's 2024, you acquire this business, and what happens next? So you sign the paper, and then what?
So fly out, help pack up basically all of Doug's warehouse.
And this is West Virginia, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So spend a good week to 10 days out there. And we're just, filling up 2 trucks full of machines, cones, packs, I mean, everything. And bringing it out to California. So I had done a previous visit where I scoped everything out. I kind of had an idea what we're going to use, what we're not going to use. And then my job is to basically bring everything here, set it up in our warehouses, hit the ground running.
So did you physically drive the truck?
I did not drive the truck. For that.
I'm just teasing you. I figured
but
not.
I did help drive the forklift and load everything onto the truck.
So when you say everything and when you say machines, let's peel that onion back just a bit. So the Kreinik family, the Kreinik company, had developed a way to twist, braid, create a product, and then at the same time spool that onto spools, correct?
Correct.
And so my guess is that was at least 2 different types of machines. Fair.
Yeah, so they had braiding machines, and then they also had winding machines.
Okay.
Definitely more braiding machines than winding machines. But yeah, those are the 2 main types of machinery.
So braiding machines create the product, and the winding machines put the product on a mechanism so that a stitcher can then unwind it and use it in their
Yeah, exactly.
project. Now, that's not also to say that Kreinik was just distributing to stitchers and to needlepoint stores. They were also, I think, to my knowledge, distributing to embroidery businesses.
They were doing, I mean, it was impressive. They would sell to clothing designers that would use it on sets. I think they did Game of Thrones. They had fly fishing customers. They were very just in different industries.
Kind of widespread and diverse in their customer base is what it sort of sounds like. And so here you are, the guy who's really primarily focused on stitchers. So whether it be cross stitch stitchers or needle pointers, you were sort of focused on that industry. So not only are you're looking at this inventory and you're looking, so what they have, you're looking at their machines, and you're also looking at their books, and you're going, holy moly, what do I have here? So you told me earlier that you were able to sort of assess the machinery that they had in West Virginia and kind of look at it through the Rainbow Gallery lens and say, okay, how am I going to take this? Can I make this, and can I wind it? And what of this do I need to move and what not? And so can you get a little bit deeper in those weeds for me?
Yeah, so our philosophy with the businesses that we've acquired has always been to kind of, as much as possible, industrialize the production. So we have a very large reach. I think we're in, 98% of shops that sell needlepoint or cross stitch. And we know that there's a high demand for most of the things that we're making.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at it through that lens, we want to have machinery that can make, mass amounts of yardage or thread. And so some of Doug's machines had those capabilities and some were smaller scale. So we figured instead of, taking all of his machinery, we will and we have invest in new, bigger machines that, can run 24 hours, can braid nonstop, that are the most up to date.
So I think what I'm hearing you say as I'm sort of reading between the lines is that some of the machines that were being used by the Kreinik company were not as efficient as you know that they could be. And so you decided to leave some of that behind. Is that right?
Yeah, and a lot of that because when we negotiated, Doug sent me a large Excel sheet of all of his machinery. Well, I mean, I had seen them once, but it was just a bunch of names. So I actually asked Doug, hey, do I need this? Do I need that? And he actually told me, some of the stuff, hey, you don't want it, don't take it.
And the reason being is probably because the technology was a little behind. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, these are machines that he had when his parents were still, part of the business. So for me, it's about bringing things into the 21st century, much more modern, much more automatic if possible.
And so I think that's interesting because while our industry is by and large a old fashioned craft, and we're still kind of honing the our grandmother's skills, we're in a new era now where production of the products can be done a lot faster in a lot of ways. I mean, I'll even liken it to there's a couple of companies out there that are now printing needlepoint, and that's
Yeah.
a discussion for another day. But it's modernizing. It's at least considering what kind of technology we can use to begin to kind of look into the next century with
Yeah,
this
absolutely. I
craft.
mean, just because needlepoint is an industry that's been around for hundreds of years, doesn't mean that we want to keep using technology from hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, and in addition to that, why would we? Like we at the end of the day, we're both business owners, and we have to look at the bottom line, the most efficient way to do things. And there's also it's not like you just jump from like, oh, I'm not doing things efficiently. Oh, I'm going to do things super efficiently.
Right.
There's a process. And in your case, it was literally the process of driving these machines all the way across the country and setting them back up. And so I'm going to ask you some gossip that I heard about. And that gossip is that once you got some of those machines, they sort of maybe didn't set up exactly how you planned when you got them there.
Yeah, some of the winding machines did not work the way we expected them to. And I think we just, I have a really, really good, and you met him, Ernesto. I have a really good engineer,
Yes.
um, but it was very difficult for him to kind of revive certain aspects of the machine.
And
So,
so that therein lies one of the a chain, like a, what am I trying to say? Like a throwing a pencil in the spokes, right? Like that stops everything because Ernesto has to be taken away from his machine duties at Rainbow Gallery to be able to help you set up these Kreinik machines. If I recall, and again, this could be folklore, but I think Doug came out to try to help get a couple of
yes.
these machines. Is that right?
Yeah, Doug, well, so Doug's daughter actually lives in LA.
Okay.
He's actually going to be moving to LA. So he's been here a few times, which is a huge help. I mean, the old owner coming down and really giving us advice and whatnot makes a huge difference. So he's been
Well, and
down here.
not I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but not only his advice, but also his machine expertise. I mean, he's probably been running these machines since he was a kid, would be my guess, or at least involved with it.
Yeah.
And if he can't fix a machine and Ernesto can't fix a machine, holy moly, then what? Then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, and so again, you're driving this machine across the country. Was there very much inventory of either base
Um,
product or spun product for you to
so
sell?
there was inventory and um, it was helpful, but it's crazy. It's like it wasn't the inventory that everybody was asking for.
Of course
It
not. It
wasn't
wasn't
the
002 HL. It was probably like 74963 that nobody knows what it is.
so I mean even now if you look on our shelves, we have a lot of inventory. But again, it's not the 032, it's not the 005, it's not the 202 HL. So we've, tried to do these things on the fly to see how to fill the gaps.
So inquiring minds want to know. So you obviously get your base product, and I think you mentioned this in the original interview that you did with Melissa. Your base product comes from Japan. It comes from Europe. It's all over the world. You're sourcing product. Were any of the raw materials, the base products that is being used in Kreinik, the same distributor that you're using with Rainbow Gallery?
Yeah, there was a few, and some of it did overlap. I was hoping that more of it would overlap.
Sure you were.
Um, and even colors, I mean, like at the end of the day, it's metallic,
Mhm.
but his metallic varied a little bit from my metallic, so I couldn't really even overlap those. So it's definitely a new roster that we have to learn and get accustomed to. Having said that, though, there are some benefits. I mean, being introduced to other vendors is always a good thing.
Mm.
It actually even gives us ideas of, certain colors that we didn't have. Now we have. Can we use it for silk lame? Can we use it for petite treasure braid? Can we use it to make other colors that we didn't really have access to because those were our colors?
So interesting. So you're there. You are now. Are you? So okay. So that was April. I'm just gonna guess May-ish is when we're starting. The dust is beginning to settle a little bit. Some things are coming back. We're October right now. So how are you feeling about the operation right now? So you just talk me through.
Sure.
I mean, we
I
hit the
mean,
bumps, and so now where are we?
yeah, I feel much better for sure. We understand the product better. We actually have, cards packaged and ready to be shipped out. Um, we're 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 much better than we were 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Okay, I'm gonna
But by
stop you
no
there.
means are we
Yep.
where we want to be. Um, we're not at 100%. We're not filled with every box on the shelf has some packages. We're still a ways to go before we get there. But I feel much more confident in my own ability and my employees' ability to know the product, to be a little bit more used to it, to have that knowledge, to be confident about, production.
Well, to be confident that you're putting out a product that is on par with the product that was being produced, right?
So it was very important for us that we don't change anything, that people don't think something is different. We wanted to produce the same exact thread. I mean, we don't touch the formula, none of that. We wanted to make sure that it's, as far as the thread goes, you're getting the same exact thing you got before, just on a different put up.
Well, and that's what I was going to stop you. You said we have it carded. So let's talk about the spool versus card controversy in the Kreinik world and the Rainbow Gallery world. So you might think that it was World War III when when Kreinik, excuse me, well, I guess Kreinik announced that Rainbow Gallery was taking over Kreinik. Everyone said, "Oh no, what's going to happen to my spools?" So I guess my question is, was your first thought, your second thought, your third, or your 15th? Wait a second. We're probably not going to be able to spool this thing anymore.
Um, so I never thought that we couldn't do it. When I visited Doug's operations, I was actually kind of impressed by his machinery that spooled it because it was pretty automated. You would put the spool in, it would wrap it, then it would cut the thread, drop off the spool, do it again. So it wasn't necessarily that I didn't think we wouldn't be able to do it, but I mean, from day one, I kind of knew that as far as uniformity and being able to produce as much as possible, having one put up is the way to go. And so what went into our thinking was, well, we have all of these Rainbow Gallery lines that are already on cards. I'm not sure it's the best thing to switch them all to spools. So we're going to switch all the spools to cards. And then that way, I can run all of Kreinik on our machinery that cards all the threads.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just trying to think about, so I'm nostalgic. I love things to stay the same. I just do. I don't want them to change. I have a sister-in-law who still wants to like get up on Christmas morning and go to her mom's house because she just doesn't want it to change. And I value that. And Needlepoint, we do
I
value
get
that.
it.
But, you know, it's similar. I just acquired a 40-year-old business. And we're not doing it the same way that it's always been done.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people who didn't like that. And change is hard. Um, Change for change's sake is particularly hard. But change for the sake of running a more efficient and effective business is what those of us as business leaders do. If we don't, then we're just going to fail. And so here's what I'm going to back up. I'm going to make this all about me. When I first heard Rainbow Gallery was taking over Kreinik, I was like, good. I've been there. That's a really well operating business. Like I am here for it. And then it never, ever occurred to me that you would change from spools to Kreinik or from spools to carts. But my first thought when I heard that was, well, thank God we're not throwing all of those spools into landfills anymore.
Right.
Because guess what? It's 2024, and we think a lot more about our imprint on the environment than we did in 1960 or 50 or whenever Doug's parents invented. Right? I can't remember when it was. You'll never see me drinking out of a plastic bottle if I can help it, because I just think plastic is terrible. So that to me is one benefit. But I can also see how people who, like myself, have what we like to call the gravity trays. So when a consumer goes into a store and they see the trays that all lay the spools,
Yeah.
and I can see, the investment in that, and what are we going to do with that plastic, right? I can see how that's kind of annoying. But I don't know. I guess in my opinion, and if Rainbow Gallery is taking over another company, you've acquired that company and you're going to run it the way that it works for you.
Yeah.
I guess, let's say you take over XYZ company in the future. I think we should just anticipate that it'll be on cards. But I guess my thought is cards. Okay. So when I was at your operation, the carding machine that I saw was also a very manual process.
Yeah.
People
Yes.
sitting, you needed people. And I thought to myself, well, no wonder why we have to wait a long time for any of these things on cards. Frankly, it's a very
Yeah.
manual process.
Yes.
The braiding process that I saw was large, was operating at full speed. You were doing 1,000 yards at a time, I think I recall. But maybe talk to me about that card process. Will that change at some point in the future too?
Yeah, so we've actually invested in a new machine that we're hopeful to have here by the end of the year.
Wow.
And this, I don't like to say anything is a silver bullet, but I think this might be the silver bullet when it comes to solving our production backlog.
Really?
Um,
Ooh, so
yeah.
tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. So tell me more about the new machine, where it came from, what is it going to do?
All right.
1, 2, 3,
So
go.
we attended a trade show for machinery, and we found
Where does one go to a trade show for machinery? Like in the middle of the Midwest where they make combines?
no. So luckily it's in Italy.
It's in
Um,
Italy. Wait a second. Okay. Well, when can I go to this trade show? That sounds pretty good. But anyway, I will not interrupt you. Please go ahead.
it,
So you're in Italy. You found yourself in Italy at a machine trade show.
it's once every 4 years,
Okay.
um, and it's massive. It's a machinery for any type of textile. So clothing, weaving, braiding. I mean, it's huge. It's I think 6 different halls. It's I think a week long. I was newly married at the time, so I took my wife. We made a little trip out of it,
Nice.
and I actually wanted to go to this trade show 4 years prior, but I was unable to go, so I
Mhm.
had to wait another 4 years to be able to go.
So what does that look like exactly? So do people literally like ship in these large machines for you to see, or is it
Yeah,
really more electronic and you're watching it on video?
they ship in the machines. I mean, they told me that some of them were there for a month setting up their booth. I
Wow.
mean, this show is no joke.
No kidding.
It's you see like huge, massive machines making rugs, making, rolls of fabric, folding clothes. I mean, it had everything. I had to spend one day to just walk with no intent to really just see what was there before I could come back the next day to be like, okay, this is where I need to focus on, and I need to really like hone in on finding somebody in this hall that's going to be what we want to be, what we're looking for.
So are some of the people that are there I don't know, I'm going to bring it down to my terms, like the Gap, like people at the Gap who are looking for or is it people who are selling to the Gap?
The buyers, yeah, probably. They're probably going to work for companies like a Gap.
I mean, making that up, but I'm thinking of really so in other words, this is large scale operators
Yeah.
who are making the fabric that J. Crew uses to make their shirt and then fold their shirt.
These companies are no joke.
So interesting.
Talking about like, up to like $1 million machines. But yeah, it was really cool to see, and it was really exciting for me because I knew that like we need to upgrade our winding. Every year we're selling more and more packs. It's just for us, these machines that we're using here they're what Rainbow Gallery was using, 10 years ago. They were updated and changes were made, but having one person to one machine and that's still not being enough is not sustainable. So finally, I found somebody that made what we were looking for. They didn't have it there actually, but they were able or they had machines that were doing what we looked for.
And you were looking for, I think, I just want to circle back because you weren't looking for a braiding machine. You weren't looking to make the product, to be able to make more of the product. You're
Sure.
looking for, once you have, because if I recall, the braiding machines, the machines that are creating the silk lame and creating the other threads that you make in-house, that you literally make, opposed to, I just want to, again, sorry, I'm getting down a rabbit hole. So you make a lot of the threads in your Burbank
Yes.
manufacturing, but you also acquire threads that you card. So things like Splendor, help me, what else? Maybe alpaca,
Sunrays,
acquire that.
Whisper, Velvet, basically 70, I would say 60 to 70% of our thread comes in on combs already.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the rest, we braid them onto combs as well. All of our threads are on combs originally.
That's the point I was trying to get at. So everything starts on a cone before it goes to a card. Some of those cones come direct from the distributor.
Right.
Many of those cones are coming from a distributor that then have to be wound together, just like Kreinik.
Yeah.
Made. There's a recipe for colors, which I love. I loved that when I was talking to Ernesto about the recipes. I told him he was the chef for a while. So you've got recipes and you're making the thread, and that was not the machinery you were looking for. You were satisfied with your ability to create the thread.
Yes.
What you weren't satisfied with was your ability to then take the thread and put it on the card that then I put on my shelf and sell individually. So
Exactly.
Okay. So the difference in, like, can you kind of break it down? I'm not a numbers girl, but I'm as a man who works in grams and yards and feet and whatever. My guess is that you are able to wind so many yards per machine, and you were looking to do something more than that.
Yeah, we probably right now we have, I would say, 6 different machines. We can probably card couple thousand packages in a day.
Okay. Right now.
Correct. Yeah. Maybe like 2,000 or 3,000 packages a day.
Okay. And so in the future, so you've purchased this machine?
Machine has been purchased. They're in the process of making a few adjustments to fit specifically our cards because, these machines make ranges of cards. And so some are big, some are small. They need to adjust the card part to our specifications.
So where is the machine currently? Is it in Milan or is it?
No,
Did you say Milan, Italy? Isn't that what you told me?
So the trade show is in Milan, Italy. The company that we're buying it from is a German company.
Okay.
And so they're out in Germany. and it's like very good quality. We're very excited.
So the
We
machine is sitting somewhere in Germany. So you're honing your German so that you can talk to the engineer and say, needs to go faster, needs to go. I'm kidding, but not. I mean, are you getting like updates on this machine? I feel like would be sort of like like creating a baby, like,
yeah,
you're worried about every
yeah,
step of the process.
definitely check in to just see how things are going. Um, but there's like an agent in the States that we work with who's kind of the middleman.
Got you. And so eventually, will this machine go on to some sort of a boat and float on over here to the United States and then be driven, hopefully unloaded at a port?
Yeah,
Glad our ship workers are back at it.
yeah.
um,
We even have like training scheduled so that they're gonna have one of their guys fly out and stay here for a few days and train us on how to use this machine.
so then
Because
your hope, instead of 2,000-ish cards a day, what is your hope then?
I mean, hopefully anywhere like from 5 to 10,000 packages a day.
So you're hoping to not only triple production, but maybe quadruple or more the production
Yeah.
of a card per day.
I mean, we have to. We have to. And then also don't forget, if need be, we still have our other machines as well.
So you're not getting rid of anything. You're just hoping to have this one up and running and maybe the other one sitting in the corner saying, oh, well, we need,
Yeah,
1,000 packs of fuzzy stuff today. Let's go run that.
in use of emergency, yeah. But no, I mean the hope is that this machine can do the production plus more of our demand, and then we won't need, all those other machines.
So, as a human, we all want the people to like us, right? Like in general, you want people to like you. So I don't need to tell you that there's been a little angst around, getting a product. Where's it at? I've called you and said, Danny, what can I do to get my boxes faster? And so I know you've heard that over and over again. So those queries, those, have not fallen on deaf ears. Number one, you don't want to be a bad business owner. None of us do.
Oh,
um, so you are really thinking that this is going to change your production.
yeah, I think my goal is to produce as much thread as possible, good quality thread, to get it into the shops, to sell it to their customers, because the demand, I mean, it's so great to watch, but the demand is so high for thread, for needlepoint. We want to be able to match that.
So I guess, did you say, and I wasn't listening because I'm always thinking of the next thing, when you hope this machine to be online?
We anticipate by the end of the year, it's going to be in our warehouse, up and running, producing.
So can I come and take a video of it?
Yes, you can, of course.
I want the first invitation. So that sort of um, addresses what I always say to people. I try to not focus on all the static because there's a lot of it, especially with social media. There's a lot of people saying, oh, he's doing this or they're doing that, or she can't do this, or they've done this poorly. And you're constantly going to get, we are human and it hurts, but other people are human too. And they're in their own world and they're sharing their thoughts, etc. So what I always say is I can only control my actions, right? I can't control anybody else's actions. I can control how we act here in the shop. I can control how we treat people on the phone. I can control. And so it sounds to me like you're doing what you can do to control what you can in your environment,
Yeah,
at least in the warehousing space or in the production space.
absolutely.
Because people say to me, well, just hire more people. If you're having trouble, just hire more people. And, I just don't believe in throwing people at problems. You have to try to be ingenuitive and think about how things are going to go. So, but I guess that also, could you hire more people to make things go faster at this point? Like where is staffing at among your four entities?
Um,
Got to be a hard thing.
yeah, it is. So one of my big hopes with this new machine is that it takes less people to operate, and then I can use my employees to do other stuff that we're not getting around to right now. And so, as most people know, getting a color card, for example, has been very difficult. Color cards are extremely labor intensive. Someone has to sit there with every cone of every color in that line, set it all up, wrap it around. We're talking about 300 colors in a line. You can only imagine how long that takes. So people are great, and the employees that we have been our employees for a very long time. Some of them have been here as long as 20 years. Um, but it's a very niche industry and product, and getting somebody to learn it and understand it is not easy. And so hiring is a very difficult process, and we can't just hire anybody. Um, so we try to stick with the people that know what our product is.
So, that I didn't ask you this. We chatted a little bit here and there about what we were going to talk about for this, but I didn't ask you this. Something that I think about a lot is we do have a lot of employees here who have been stitching for 25, 30 years. You've
Right.
got Ernesto, who has been a machinist for you for
Yeah.
longer than your dad owned the company, right?
Yeah.
Have you thought about any kind of succession or internship? Or I've started thinking about how can we sort of, find that next generation of Ernestos? Has that crossed your path, or have you even had a chance to think about that
Yeah,
much?
we actually recently hired one gentleman who's young and got very intrigued by the machinery,
Okay,
uh, to shadow and be Ernesto's assistant.
awesome.
And this is something that from day one I was very aware of. We have two managers in the warehouse, and Sally, who used to work for us,
Mhm,
that when I took over the business, I was very aware that these three people are very instrumental to the business,
mhm,
and I need to have some sort of succession plan
mhm,
uh, for that position.
mhm.
And I always knew and still know, and I tell him once a week, you know, I need to know if you're ever trying to like stop doing this,
Retire?
um, because your position is too important for me to like not have a plan.
Mhm,
Uh, Thankfully, we have this kid. He's really good. I'm hoping that, he can learn and be able to do what Ernesto does,
awesome.
and also just help him out. Ernesto gets spread very thin as someone that is a handyman that can fix anything in this building,
Mhm,
to also just operating the machines. There's only so much he can do. And now we've added Kreinik to his plate, so it's even more for him to do.
mhm.
So he needs help. Thankfully, we've gotten it to him. And if we can get more, we'll give him more help because he can use it.
That's awesome. So I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but if you missed and I'm not trying to plug my own work, but hey, why not? If you missed our tour of Rainbow Gallery, you can go back in our videos here and see on February 7th of 2024, I met Ernesto, and to your point, he really is a magician, and he's a really cool guy with the best attitude. And so I think it's awesome that you found someone for him to kind
Yeah,
of
we're very,
mentor, right?
because we've hired a few people and they never lasted.
Well,
That job is no
it's
joke.
niche. It's niche too, like you said earlier.
It's a niche. Attention to detail is very important. I mean, if you load the wrong color or the wrong position, you mess up SLO2. So, um, and he has to kind of baby him in the beginning and really, make sure he doesn't make mistakes or whatever. And so we don't want to waste time when it comes to that position.
Yeah. It's hard. It's kind of like we're desperate for finishers right now, but we need our finishers to focus on finishing, and it's very hard for them to teach or where they just need to produce. So it's being in an industry that is very, very hands-on and textile, and you have to use your eye for color and all the things. It's not easy to just grab a new employee.
No, it's not. Honestly, uh, employee relations is probably the hardest, most stressful part of my job at the end of the day. It's, you know, because you can't run, especially at this stage, you can't run a company like this without employees, dedicated employees, reliable employees. Um, we we rely on them through and through.
Well, it's any industry. It's
Of course.
everywhere. HR, I will say, HR was a problem when I was a fundraiser at a university, and HR, it's not a problem. It's just top of everyone's mind. The
Yeah.
human resource is something. But I do think it's very, very smart that you looked at a machine that will be able to do the work maybe of 6 different employees. And
Yeah.
so hopefully that'll help you out a lot. So sometimes we have a color. I'm going to switch gears now because we're off production. Now I'm going to talk about supply chain. So sometimes we have like a blue or something. I'm Lauren's way better at the colors than I am. And we'll get our rainbow gallery shipment and the blue's not there and the blue's still not there and the blue's not there. So how does that work? So you're waiting for raw materials. Sometimes you just don't get it. Do you think you'll never get it? Do you consider like, hey, I just need to discontinue this. This is getting frustrating. Like how do you manage all of that?
Yeah, it's a very complicated process because we have so many different vendors, and the vendors all have different processes of how they produce their thread. And so, one of our vendors, we get a shipment from them every single month. We place an order, they have large minimums, and they ship me a portion of that minimum on this month's shipment. And then the next shipment, they send me more of that. I mean, clearly their production capabilities are limited. And so they have to break up our shipments into multiple months. But we get it, every single month. And I get a little bit of FT15. And then next month I get more, but it's never enough. And on and on and on. And there's other vendors where they dye the thread for us and they, dye it in batches and they do 10 different colors or 15 different colors. And it takes 4, 5, 6 months. And when I get the shipment in, it took 5 months, but it has 20 different colors on there and, it's 300 cones. And so it really just ranges. And then there's sometimes, yeah, they whisper, it's a big one. The thread comes in and it's different and there's nothing we could do about it. It's a natural shape, it's a natural fiber, and we're kind of at the behest of what they're able to produce for us. Some of our vendors require lab dips. So they'll make the thread, they send me a lab dip. Hopefully I approve of it. If I don't approve of it, then it delays the process even more because they need to go and change it. Sometimes I approve of the lab dip and it comes in different from the lab dip. And then that adds 6 more months. Anyone that's tried to get a V275 will know we were out of that for a very long time.
Is that the white?
It's like a grayish color, I
Oh,
believe.
the velvet. Okay, gray.
Yeah. It didn't match the lab dip. I basically had to reject the shipment, and it took us like 6 more months on top of the 7 months that we waited to get this thread. For a year we didn't have it. So it's all over the place, and we just try to deal with it. We try to bring in as much thread as possible so we don't need to order as often. We'd rather sit on it here than be waiting for it. But
So in
again,
other words, you're buying thread that you think may last you a year. Is that right? Like you might buy enough, or what is your projections?
We try to sometimes go 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Again, depending on the vendor and depending on how long it takes them to turn it around. We don't want to get stuck in a position where we're waiting and we're out of stock. And this is something that really became the norm once COVID hit. These mills started taking much, much longer. And we had to adjust and say, okay, well, we don't want to wait this long. So if we're going to wait this long, we're going to make sure that, it's worth it and that we have enough for a couple of years so that, once I get down and need to order again, I can order 6 months in advance and still have stock.
That's fascinating. I mean, I'll say that the trickle down of your experience is not unlike my own. So in other words, you're saying I need to buy, I don't know what it is. Let's just call it black velvet. And you're saying I'm going to project just like any retail industry does. Clothing industries, they use projections to order out years sometimes. I know that some of these clothing vendors have ordered Christmas for this year, like a year in advance. And so if suddenly something becomes en vogue, like, like it did during COVID, where everyone was wearing like joggers, it's like, well, shoot, we had dresses that we couldn't sell because no one wanted to buy dresses. They wanted to buy joggers.
Yeah.
So your experience isn't unlike any other big industry in life. But what I'm hearing as a small business owner is that, and I also think that people don't think about this from a retail standpoint. So I I have to buy what I think I can sell, just like you. I have to project
Yeah.
out what I think I can sell. But as a small business owner, sometimes the cash flow doesn't support that, right?
Yeah.
And
You have
so
to have,
you have to project, you have to take risks, and sometimes you take a risk on the wrong thing. So when you say I'm going to buy, 2 years worth of black velvet, well, then all of a sudden everybody starts using purple velvet, and you've run out of that, and it's going to take you 6 months to get it, and then you have to say, well, shoot, is purple velvet going to sell at the same rate as the black was? And then am I going to risk multiple tens of thousands of dollars to bring in this base product when I'm just, I'm dumbing it down because I know that you've got filters and projections and
no,
spreadsheets and things that are telling you all of these things. But sometimes it's a manual process.
yeah, I actually don't think it's dumbed down. I think you hit the nail on the head. All of a sudden, and it's probably because somebody puts it in a chart or a guide or, whatever, but a color that we didn't sell more than 30 packages a year, all of a sudden somebody wants 50 packages of it. And I'm like, well, we were only selling this many, so I only ordered this much. And now you want this much. And so we have probably 8 to 10,000 SKUs.
Uh-huh.
So, all the lines and all the colors, it's impossible to invest that much to have on hand quantities for every single color. So you have
Right.
to say, this color is worth it, this color is not. And like you said, sometimes you're going to guess wrong and they're going to need a color and then you're going to run out and then you need to place an order and it takes you 6 months. So
Yep.
um, it's not an exact science. Sometimes the numbers just don't work.
Well, and
And
the economy of scale is a little bit different in my world versus yours. But then, I mean, so personally, I invested in a new building not too long ago, right? And so I had to put up all this money and
yeah,
this like wink and a prayer on this new building. And I'm not seeing anything. I'm still paying rent in my current location. I'm doing so how many ever years or months or however ago it was, invested in this machine in
yeah,
preparation, and so maybe I don't know, but my assumption is that there's not an endless pot of money at Rainbow Gallery, Fleur de
oh,
Paris. And so you had to say, ooh, we might need to cut down a little bit on that black velvet. Maybe we just buy 1 year supply instead of two, so that I can parlay that money
yeah,
into
we
this
have to
other
make it work.
product you've got to shift pockets of money, and it's a real thing. It's not a fake thing.
Yeah,
It's real.
I think sometimes, I don't expect people to know all of these details, but it's definitely a part of it. It's, you know, figuring it out. How are we going to be able to do these big things that I have high aspirations for that, I'm hopeful a year and a half down the line, not only is it going to pay off, but it's really going to make our production to the point where customers aren't waiting 6 weeks to get an order.
Yep.
At the end of the day, sometimes the negative noise is very loud. And so it's, we want to satisfy our customers. We want them to be happy. And so we do a lot of sacrifice to be able to have those opportunities and those abilities to produce and supply our customers.
Well, and you said something about the negative noise, and no matter what, you're going to hear it. It doesn't matter if you're an astronaut, if you're Danny Ravan, if you're Megan with a small business, if you're, the Coca-Cola president, whoever, you're going to hear negativity about the way you run your business. I think what's different about our industry is that it's way more personal. And so people come in and we have conversations, and I know that they're stitching a stocking for their grandchild. And I say, how's Susie, who just had this? And I say to you, how's your daughter? We have this kind of personal connection, which I love. But
Beautiful.
sorry?
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, but what becomes ugly about it is that then people think that we should be sharing all of ourselves, all of
Yeah.
our business prowess, all of our decisions that we're making behind closed doors. And I like to, and I don't know, I'm not maybe as private as I should be in some ways. I guess it's because I'm curious and because I wear my heart on my sleeve. But as a business person, I'm not going to tell you how much money I made last year or how far in the hole I am this month because I invested in something else. And I think we need to all give each other a little bit of grace, because in the end, we don't want to be bad business owners. Like, I don't want to go down in history as the person who ran Susan Roberts into the ground. You don't want to go down in history as the person who put out a terrible product for Kreinik and, Doug staring down at you and saying, gosh, what a dodo bird that guy was. I should have never sold it to him. That's none of our intention.
Yeah. Funny enough, actually, my intention was down the line for people to say, oh, wow, look, he was able to change the issues that I had before with Kreinik. Um, so yeah, absolutely. My heart is in it to make people happy with what I'm doing, not upset with what I'm doing.
That's exactly right. And while we're here in this, like, people might be a little bit upset. I'm going to put my foot right in the muck. Okay. And I want you to help me with this. So in our industry since 2020, a lot more players have joined the game. A lot more players have joined the game.
Yeah.
So you've got people on Etsy, you've got people with their own websites, you've got direct to consumer canvas sellers, you've got conglomerates now, you've got people who are representing a lot of different people. You've got just the industry has changed and it's morphed for good, I think, for the most part. But
Absolutely.
then you've got this heart of the industry who worked really hard. People like your dad, people like Sally London, people like Susan Roberts, and like the Melissa Shirleys I could go on and on, Doug Kreinik, I could go on and on and on and on about these people who I would call like sort of the OGs, like the heart of our industry. That's exactly right, the pioneers. And while we want to make them all proud, we also are staring down the face of like a different economy where the internet wasn't accessible in 1979, and travel wasn't people weren't doing as much traveling, people weren't doing any e-commerce, all of the things. So there's this big debate in our industry around who to support, right? So in general, if you're kind of entrenched in our industry, you hear the OG saying the brick and mortar should be who you support, and vendors in the needlepoint industry should only vend to the brick and mortar stores who then vend to a consumer. Well, where I sit, that's nearly impossible to sustain because I can't control who's doing what out of their homes. Remember how I said earlier, I can only control what I can control in my own building. And that's to be accessible and to try to be thoughtful and to try to rising tide raises all the boats, et cetera, et cetera. However, I also sit in a place where I would say a pretty good customer of yours, meaning I sell a lot of your product, and I rely on you getting me that product, right? And so my hope is that you look at me and my other colleagues who have brick and mortar operations as sort of your backbone as well. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm Susie Jones and I just started an Etsy page and I want to start selling your product. How are you trying to handle that sort of new piece of business? I mean, everyone's dollar is green, right? So you don't want to turn business away, but there's a lot of pieces to think about.
Yeah, it's always a tough process for us when we have a new account wanting to purchase from us. We try to be pretty rigorous. We will always do our research on, you can't be selling out of your home. We want you to have some sort of presence physically. We definitely do a case by case basis. But yes, our intention is always to support the brick and mortar shops. I have no desire to deal with, retail customers. I have no desire to have 50 different small little customers that are selling online versus selling to a shop who has a location. It's a numbers game for us, and we don't want to have 300 packages to little, things here and there. We're wholesalers.
And yeah, and so, but I'm also thinking about that from my standpoint. So it's just going to muck up your system if you're selling one pack of SL47 and you're doing the whole process. You're accepting the invoice, you're, putting that purchase order in. It's just a little bit of a slower process. And while it's not maybe your desire, it's also just not your original intention. Your original
Yeah.
intention is to be a wholesaler.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a reason why we have, order minimums, and we require, because at the end of the day, every order takes, a certain amount of energy, overhead, whatever you want to call
Well, it's
it.
laborious. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have, a lot of work that goes into placing an order, and so I'm not saying that if you want to place a small order that it's a problem, but we're in the business to sell thread as a distributor, as a manufacturer. And so if you're buying a pack here and a pack there, um, it's not the best use of our energy.
If you just want to buy a couple packs, maybe you come to me and you say, "Hey, I want to put together a kit. I am unable to secure a wholesale account with the big, because of the minimums or whatever it is." And maybe I say to you, "Oh, shoot, okay. Well, if you want 40 of those, maybe you and I can sort of cut a deal or something."
Yeah,
So
of course.
I can help you. And it's not to say that either one of us want to gatekeep, or you don't have time to gatekeep. You
Right.
also don't have time to do a lot of research, right? On who is what and who's who. And so you rely on your colleagues to be honest and to be open with you about what's going on in the industry. But at the same time, we have to focus on what's important, which is focusing on what we can do and how we can do it and how fast we can do it. Because none of us is millionaires in this business. I always say that nobody is, buying $3 million yachts and going off on summer vacations. We're all just trying to do our best and make a dime while we're at it. And try to enjoy what we're doing and love what we're doing. And yeah, so like I said, I decided to set my foot right in the muck for just a
Yeah.
second. And now I'm going to
No,
step out of it, I think.
we get a lot of requests to open accounts, and we have to turn them away. We've always, I mean, I remember when I was younger, you know, I thought, oh, we should sell retail, but my dad would always say, no, like we're a wholesaler, we want to sell large quantities and turn it over. You don't want to bother with, and I think it applies even at this rate, because it's the reason why we don't sell individual cards to customers, because if you're a shop, you should be able to buy 6 cards of a color. And if you can't do that, then maybe it's not the right fit, um, at least from a buyer and seller perspective.
This particular product line may not be for you, or maybe if you do intend to be a very small shop, which a lot of them are, maybe you could find another small shop friend and you could split a shipment, which
Yeah, yeah,
all of those things are possible. It's just, it's funny because we've been an industry of very small shops and small family businesses for so long, and we're drinking from a fire hose. And I don't think anybody wants to tell anybody else how to do their business. But in order for you to maintain any sort of business acumen and the ability to distribute in a way that works for everybody, you just have to make some rules. It's all you just have to do it.
yeah. When we took over Kreinik, and we got a lot of pushback, I told people, I said, listen, I have to make a decision that's best for my company. If you choose to not buy from us because of that decision, and that's the best decision for your company, then, you got to do what's best for you, and I got to do what's best for me.
That's right.
I can argue with you on that.
And you want everybody to be successful. It's not to say that you don't, but you have to, at the end of the day, you have to look out for number one. That's, like I said, we're humans and we want everyone to like us, but we also have to make the decisions that work for us. So, I I also feel like you are a very open person. And if a business owner wants to call you and have a conversation about their business and why they think or don't think that they should be vendors of my guess is that your door's open. I don't know if you have any time.
I've even given some shop owners my cell phone number. Um,
Nice.
you know, I think it's important because I'm not the person that's answering the phone every day and I'm not the face necessarily. Um, yeah, I encourage people to really tell me and give me their thoughts. I mean, it's the only way I can know what's going on and have connection with the customer.
I get it. You know, it's still a shame that none of us has had time to create a trade association because I do think that would be an opportunity for all of us to come together like you were in Milan with those other business owners and talk like
Absolutely.
for the time to just collaborate and sit and talk and really sort of
Yeah, TNNA was imperfect, but it definitely served a purpose that helped a lot of people
yeah,
stay, you know, as
that would sort of be my hope. I haven't ever said this on here or really in public, but it would be my hope that in the next 5 years or so, we could kind of circle the wagons when everybody has a time to breathe and understand this new normal that we're in, where we're just like running, 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 and really kind of start to think about what's next for us. But that leads me to the next thing. What is next for you? So where do you see Rainbow Gallery? This is a question of one of my shop colleagues when I was interviewing you. Catherine said, I wonder where he sees Rainbow Gallery in 5 years.
That's a great question. I don't know. I think what I view 5 years from now is just um, a well-oiled machine that's, turning out product, and we're always looking to see if there's a new fiber or something that, we can add. But I think right now with the Kreinik acquisition, um, I'm not focusing on growing uh, at the moment, but just, making it as efficient and just getting the product out there.
I think that's fair. You want to be in growth mode, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're feeding and watering the
Yeah.
seeds that you've planted. So I understand that. And so there's no real other product development going on in your operation right now.
No, not right now. I think, probably my sights will be set on probably a bigger space down the line. Uh, but yeah, it's funny. I remember telling my dad when I was in the process of moving everything over, I said, we need to take a break on buying any more businesses for now. Got my hands full. I think it's a good time to, like you said, just water and focus on cultivating.
And for you, it's pretty lonely at the top right now. It always feels lonely at the top, but it's kind of lonely at the top. Have you thought about, and maybe this isn't even a fair question and you don't have to answer it, but have you thought about trying to bring in some other management, or are you just kind of hoping to sort of keep?
I have, losing my father was a big loss, of course, personally, but also in this office. We were basically the only two people that were doing upper level management things.
Mhm,
So it has crossed my mind. Um, but I like to hold things close to home. And
mhm,
so I would need to really bring somebody up rather
mhm.
than just bring somebody in to help me do those things.
Sure.
But I am learning. I mean, I can't do all of this by myself. It's just, especially now with a child, it's too difficult.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing what I can for now. But yes, it's something in the back of my mind that I would like to do one day.
So when you hire a chief namer of colors, I want to be that person. I'm just kidding. I really admire your work. I have two more quick questions that I hope are softball because we kind of got down in the weeds a little bit. In 2021, when you spoke with Melissa, she asked you what are your top sellers, and you said Splendor and Silk Lame. So now it's 2024, and I want to know if that has remained the same.
Silk Lame is by far our number one seller. Um, it just everybody loves it. I've There's no other line in our company quite like Silk Lame. Of course, it comes in three different sizes, and it has the most colors of any of our lines. So it's it's just the best. But Splendor is a close second. People either love Splendor or they hate Splendor.
I love Splendor for what it's worth.
I love Splendor, but some people are like, I hate applying it, this, that. But numbers don't lie, and it's our second best seller.
Okay, what comes
Um,
next?
After that, I would say the Neon Race Plus. It's again sparkly. Uh, the colors are great. Uh, People love it. We sell a ton of it. We can't keep it on the shelves. We
Well,
get
go ahead.
cones and they finish, and we have to wait till the next month for more cones. It's amazing.
And Neon Race Plus is not something you make. That's something you acquire.
Correct.
And it's
Yeah. Um, but it gets made somewhere else, and I think they can't make it fast enough.
well, here's what I'll leave you with because I think unless you have anything else you want to share with us, I think you've done a great job of giving us an update of all of your business lines. So I'll leave you with this. For what it's worth, here at the Needlepoint Clubhouse, our biggest seller is Silk Lame. But Neon Race Plus is up there. And do you want to know there are three top colors that we sell here? I'm gonna see if you can guess them. Can you guess them? Do you know them?
Um,
And it's not 01 and 02. I'll give you that. That clue.
NP20 or NP22?
NP20 and 22. And do you know what colors those are?
Red.
Ruby red. So I think there was some innuendo there. And NP60 is also a big seller, and that's navy blue. But I think I personally have a little bit of a push on that one because I love navy. But anyway, Danny, this has been very interesting. I really appreciate your time. Like I said, it's lonely at the top, but I think you're doing a great job. And I think that my colleagues, as well as our end user, our stitchers, will find it very interesting to know that you're getting this new machine that could really revolutionize the amount of thread that you're able to put out. And I think it'll be very, very cool. And I want the first invitation to welcome her home. Maybe we can, like a ship, you know how they smash champagne on the side of a ship? Can we do
Yeah.
that on the side of the machine? All right. Well, keep up the good work. And I hope it's sunny out there in California. In fact, I hope it's sunny the next time I come out there because
Thank
it
you.
rained the whole time I was there.
Yeah, unfortunately, every year we do that open house. The weather is not good. Early August, it's like 80 degrees outside, so
That's nice.
weather is so good.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that all of us here in the needlepoint industry are thinking about our friends in Florida right now.
Yeah,
As when this episode airs, it will be right after both Milton and Helene have really taken a hit on our friends down south. So hang in there, friends. You hang in there too, Danny. We will all hang in there together and make the needlepoint world a better place, right? So
yes, that's the plan.
thank you, sir. And I will talk to you again very soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye now.